Pittsburgh.
Oh, I love
Uh,
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's great.
yeah.
Hmm.
It's a
We are
bunch of
live on YouTube, just so you know. Not you don't have to shut up, but I'm just telling you. So
Yep.
don't give any agency secrets out or anything.
The few I have.
So Laura, since you're new on here, do you have any questions for us? I mean, you've watched it, so you kind of know what we do, but just making sure you don't have any questions.
So were you saying, should I keep my camera off
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll
outside
holler
of the
at you
We'll
in
tent?
holler
just,
at you
yeah.
I'll literally say, "Hey, Laura, turn your camera off,"
Great.
or Amanda will one.
Yeah.
No, that sounds good. I'll just keep camera and audio off until
Yep.
y'all call on me, and
Yep. That sounds good. And we'll give a little preview or talk about it at the beginning, kind of that y'all are coming up. But yeah.
great. I'm
Hey,
excited. Now
Amanda.
I think I'll just answer the questions that Amanda asks. I'm gonna set a timer for 15 minutes so I kind of keep
Okay.
that in mind as we
Oh,
go, but so
that
I'll
sounds
try
good.
not to talk too much because I also can talk a little bit too much.
I love it. Well, I mean, when you got great stuff to share, it's awesome.
She's got a lot to say. There's a lot of cool stuff going on.
I
Yes,
love
Renee,
that.
did you
Are
have
you on a Surface Pro?
me?
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay. I was gonna change your background,
Okay.
because you're one of us. But yet I was like, if you're on a Surface Pro, it will not let me do it, and I do not know why. So, and then it causes more problems than solutions. So I was like, I don't
Yeah.
want to change it if you're on your
Yeah.
Surface Pro,
If
and then
I'm not in my office, then I have a Surface Pro, but I'm in my office today.
okay,
I'll try to get myself situated.
line
There.
yourself up. Yeah, I just like our folks to have the background. I think Ellen had hers up, didn't you, Ellen? Yep, you did.
Man, Dr. Crocker rocks.
He does. He's awesome.
Oh, right back at you, Billy and Renee.
I mean, you're an impressive individual, that's for sure.
I don't see how you get everything done that you do.
I know she
Yeah.
is like a walking miracle. Yeah.
But it does feel like a walking miracle every day, Billy. Every
Seriously, I don't.
day.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm busy, but I'm like, oh my God, Ellen.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, I know this is maybe your last time officially on the show, but maybe
No,
when you
it's not.
move. Oh, we got him before he
I
leaves.
got him before he leaves. I had to
Yes.
cancel one, but I got him before he leaves.
Good. I was gonna say, don't forget us. Come back
I
from
totally.
Pennsylvania, and then we'll, yeah.
And Laura, if you just want to, you can push that start webinar button right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. So it's like that big red, button. Push
I will
it.
give
Do
you
it.
the offer. Just push
Get
that
us
green
started.
button and
Yeah.
get us
I love
started.
it. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. All right. Good deal.
Awesome. Folks are rolling in. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. A beautiful day here in Kentucky. Hopefully, everybody's doing well out there. We're going to get started here in just about 1 minute or so. Got a great lineup for you all today. Got a first timer. We always love that. And then a couple of regulars, more or less, that we're going to enjoy having on the show as well. So, yeah, really looking forward to today's program with you all.
Oh, it's 11. You ready to go?
Let's do this.
All right. Hi, I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. We have several topics today to think about because one, I've never really thought, when a tree grows, you see all of this, leaves and branches and everything. But what we don't technically see is what's under the ground. It's like, how big do those roots go? Where are they? Like, a lot of times when they chop a tree, they pull a tree up, it's just like right underneath and what's down. Is that as far as they are?
We're
You're gonna
about to
learn.
find out. I know. We're really excited. We've got a repeat visitor with us today, Mr. Chris Wiedemann with the Kentucky Division of Forestry. He oversees kind of the urban forest here in Kentucky and that program overall. But he is an arborist as well by training and a forester by training. So he's got all kinds of skills. But yeah, really excited to have Chris on talking about those roots. What's going on with those roots under the trees? I'm really excited about this segment. Something I've thought a little bit about in the past, Renee. As we think about how trees grow and where they grow, and treating trees and all kinds of little things related to tree roots. So I'm really excited to have Chris talking about that. That'd be really a good segment. And then we have Dr. Amanda Gumbert with us, another one of her water talks going on today, and we're really excited to have her. We have a brand new guest with her, Miss Laura Gregory. She's with the Kentucky Waterways Alliance, and she's going to be talking with Amanda about our waterways and here in Kentucky and watersheds. So really excited about that. And then we have Dr. Ellen Crocker, our resident forest health specialist, going to be talking about that dreaded emerald ash borer and what we can do to treat our trees, and if we should be treating our trees, right? Sometimes it may be a call to remove that tree and not treat it. So Dr. Crocker will be sharing that with us, but we're excited to have you all with us again. The program is about you all, the viewers and our listeners. So if you've got any questions for our presenters today, please use the chat function. And if you're on YouTube or you're a podcast listener, thank you very much. We do appreciate it, but you can interact with us via email at forestry.extension@uky.edu, and we can respond with you that way. But Renee, glad to be with you as well on this beautiful day here in Kentucky.
Definitely. So we've got a cram-packed show, so let's go ahead and get started. So Chris, if you want to turn your camera on, we appreciate you coming to the show again. Oh, Chris, there you are. I was like, oh, we lost him. Okay.
Welcome back, Chris.
Welcome. Yes.
Thank you.
No, we appreciate you being on, and you, when you brought this topic to me, I thought, that is such an interesting topic. So it's like, yeah, what are all those roots doing and where are they? Like, are they just like where the tree is and they go straight down, or, do they go out? I thought, it might be interesting for people to know that.
It's interesting for me to talk about, and the roots do so much for a tree, and they're so important to the overall health of a tree that it's really something we should all think about more.
Awesome.
Great.
I was really looking forward to
it.
it.
You guys gave me a fantastic lead-in. I was over here blushing a little bit about it. So,
That's awesome, man. It'll
so
be good. Yeah.
pop this slideshow
Yep.
on here. All right. Can we see that?
It's thinking about it. There
Gotcha.
it goes. Perfect.
All right. Fantastic. All right. So, roots. Where are the roots? Let's see. There we go. By way of introduction again, my name is Chris Wiedemann. I am the Urban and Community Forestry Program Coordinator for the Kentucky Division of Forestry. I am a forester. I'm an ISA, International Society of Arboriculture certified arborist, and an environmental educator. Where are the roots? So I was really excited to bring this topic to Renee, and really excited to talk about this with all kinds of folks, because it's so important. Three kind of topics we're going to cover today. Got to do some tree physiology. I love talking about it, but it's going to be important to what we're talking about in general. So tree physiology and root function, where the roots are and why, and then why it's important for us to know where they are. So tree physiology and root function. General kind of tree physiology, starting with that, because it's all important and they all tie together as one organism. The first thing, like Renee mentioned, that we all kind of think about is that big leafy green part on top, the crown of the tree. And if we hearken back to our middle school sciences, it's what does the photosynthesis in our tree that feeds the tree and runs the tree. So it's kind of our engine of the tree. A space that I want to talk about that is part of the tree, but not a physical part of the tree, is the tree's drip line. And so this is the space where if we think of the crown of the tree, and when it rains, that rain kind of shunts off the eaves of the crown of the tree, off the sides, and would fall down the sides where the tree is kind of keeping water from going underneath, and it falls down the edges of the tree, the line that it drips down. And you can see that kind of in the square box there, but then in the gray kind of circle below, that's all the space underneath. And it's important for us to know where that drip line is as we move forward and talk about where roots are. And then, of course, the trunk of the tree provides the structure for all of the crown of the tree, for all the branches, holds up the engine, but also transports water and nutrients, sugar and energy that the crown's producing down to the roots and vice versa. And then, of course, the meat of the topic today, the roots. And for the majority of trees, our roots are going to be underneath the ground. That's our first obvious where the roots answer, underneath the ground, right? But we're going to dig a little more into that. So, what are our roots doing for us? When we think of the functions of our roots, big main one is stability. Our tree's life history strategy, the way they've evolved, is to get big and tall and get up towards the sky and get all that light to produce energy, but also throw their seeds out and spread more of themselves. And our roots provide a structure and stabilization for the trees to do that. When you really stop and think about the mass and bulk of the body of a tree, like it's a lot. And so those roots are doing a lot to keep that tree upright and stable. They also have kind of straw feeder roots in the root system that are absorbing water and minerals, and so providing the crown and kind of engine of that tree with the resources they need to make those sugars and energy to sustain the tree. Our roots also act as energy storage for the tree. They store carbohydrates and carbons down in the roots for energy. And you can kind of think of them as the battery packs of our tree. Right now in the Northern Hemisphere, on the east coast of North America, the majority of our trees are dormant or coming out of dormancy. And so they're using that energy in the roots to make buds and make flowers and all of that kind of thing that they've stored down in the roots. Our roots also produce plant growth hormones, so chemicals that are communicating within the tree itself to tell it when to do those things, when to put on leaves, where to put on leaves. Maybe we need to put on new branches. And our roots are helping to make and move those chemicals around for us. So, pretty essential things that are under the ground that we don't traditionally think about quite. We have all of this other beautiful tree to think about. Getting down into our roots, actual kind of structure and types of roots that we have are important to know. And I'm going to talk about two with a third kind of addition tangent. So the large kind of chunky roots in our tree, these are the ones that provide the most structure and the most storage of energy are our lateral or transport roots. And like it sounds, they transport a lot of water and energy back up into the tree, as well as minerals. These are really big roots and something to really consider when we're thinking about the health of our tree. After that, moving outward from our lateral roots are our absorptive roots. And these are our fine, really like hair-like smaller roots that are spreading out and kind of scouting out to find and absorb the nutrients and water and bring all of those needed resources up into the tree. These roots also, in many trees, combine with fungi to have mycorrhizal mats and really spread those fine roots out even farther. I didn't draw those in because it would just be like an absurd web of tiny, tiny, tiny little threads. But those are the roots interacting with those fungi. Thinking energy-wise, economy in the tree, it's much harder for trees to regrow and our larger lateral roots, those big roots that are storing energy, are a little more important. But if we lose some of our smaller, finer absorptive roots, those are easy kind of, if you want to think energy cheaper roots that they can regrow a lot more efficiently and quicker. Now, of course, there will always be the question about the infamous taproot. And Chris, why is there no taproot in your diagram here? And that's a great question. There are species, especially when they're younger, that put on a taproot that goes downward and kind of taps down into the earth. As those trees mature and grow and they spread their lateral roots out, they don't necessarily need that taproot as much anymore. And it tends to shrink and disappear in most species of trees. In areas where we have really, really deep, fertile, lush soils, we can maintain some of those. But species like oaks and hickories and pines, when they're young, will have that taproot, but it does tend to disappear. So, I've alluded to it. Obviously, the roots want to be in the ground, but where and why? The kind of traditional image we have when we think of the shape of a whole tree, crown, trunk, and roots, is pretty mirrored. As above, so below. The roots mirror the crown of a tree. And those roots don't really go beyond the drip line. This is something you see in art everywhere. We really like this imagined image. The reality of where our tree roots are is a little different. The majority of our tree roots are going to be within the first 3 feet of soil. All of our lateral roots, for the most part, those large structural roots, and then all of our fine absorptive roots in that first top portion of soil. And they'll spread well beyond our drip line, beyond the canopy of the tree. If you think our drip line is shedding the water from the tree's can't or crown down onto the ground, and so, it wants to get out to that edge at least to get the water, and then farther. And why are they only within the first 3 feet? So that has to do with soils. Our soils are layered. Obviously, we want to have a good topsoil, lush, fertile topsoil on the top, and then we have a subsequent B layers, etc., going downward. The farther we go down in soils, the less oxygen and nutrients there are because the less space there is within our soils. Our topsoil is usually fairly light, fluffy. Moving down, it gets a little tighter, and the particles between soils are a little tighter. And trees are like people. We're going to go for a path of least resistance. The easier it is for our roots to get nutrients, oxygen, water, that's where they're going to go and stay. The farther we get down, the more acidic our soils get, the more compacted, the less oxygen there is. And it's funny to think about, but our tree roots need oxygen just as much as the rest of the tree does to function and do all of the things that they do. In areas that have human disturbance in our soils, so when we have anthroposols where people are scraping topsoils off, rearranging soil layers, compacting soils, those areas have even more limitations set on the resources that trees need. And sometimes because of excessive compaction, things like that, our roots will be up at the top of the soil where they know they can get those resources easily. So our soils have a big part to play on where those roots are and are why we usually have the majority of our tree roots in that first 3 feet of soil. Why do we need to know this? I mean, it's really cool stuff, Chris. I get that. But why? So, we do like to plant trees, especially in our communities and more urban areas where trees aren't regenerating naturally. We put them there. And it's important to know how to plant trees because of where their roots are. And then we want to water those trees. So making sure that we can sustain those trees in our community. And as they mature, and we want to protect those trees and make sure that we have them for generations to come. So thinking about planting trees, if we get a containerized tree or a ball and burlap tree where we can't see those nice kind of naked roots in a bare root seedling, we need to pull some of the soil off of the top of that tree until we can find the root flare or the root collar. I love to use my hand and arm as an example for that. If we think of our fingers as the roots and then our arm as the trunk of the tree, that area where if you splayed your fingers out, your palm kind of flares out would be the root collar or that root flare. And that's where your roots start. And we want to keep those roots as high as possible up towards the top of the soil. If we don't take the soil off in our container or ball and burlap tree and we just plant it as is, we could be planting that tree substantially deeper in the soil than our roots want to be. And then our tree has to expend energy and carbons to get those roots back up into an area where it's nicer for the roots to grab all the resources they need to help the tree survive. Before we do that, though, way before we start planting trees and digging holes, we want to make sure that we're planting our trees with right tree, right place in mind. Traditionally, we think of this as everything above ground. At maturity, when the tree grows to adulthood, where will that crown be? Will it be too close to utility lines, too close to our house? But one of the things we also need to consider is the size of a tree at maturity and how much soil volume we'll have for the roots. The crown size is a reflection of what kind of root system we have below. flatter root system, not mirrored, within that first 3 feet of soil. Ideally, for a 20-inch diameter tree at maturity, we want at least 1,200 cubic feet. So thinking of our soil kind of in block cubes. And that roughly translates to a 20 foot by 20 foot by 3 feet in depth area for that tree to grow to maturity. Kind of a general rule is a foot out for every inch in diameter at maturity that you're looking for the tree to grow to. And as I mentioned, the size of the crown of our tree, the size of our tree as a whole, is really dictated by what kind of root area it has. And so smaller trees, you can get away with a smaller root area, and going up the line from there. You can also see this relationship in planted trees. These trees, same species, planted at the same time, but are two different sizes and different healths of trees as well. The trees on the right are substantially larger with larger crowns versus the trees on the left that were planted in tree wells or tree pits. Some folks would call them tree coffins, because these trees are kind of stagnated to where they're going to be forever. And you can see a difference in color, which can indicate a difference in health within the tree. The trees on the left are a little more yellow or chlorotic versus the trees on the right, which are nice, broad, and healthy with that nice, broad grass area and a good green color. Of course, being forestry people, we love a chart, and we have kind of an optimized minimum soil area for size of crown spread or diameter at maturity of a tree. So their example here is a 16-inch diameter tree would require at least 1,000 cubic feet of soil. Once we get our trees in the ground, we want to make sure to water them, especially within that first 3 years of being planted. For younger trees, after we've just planted them and they've been in a container or in a ball and burlap situation, their roots have been pretty confined to that container area. And so we want to make sure to water those trees within the drip line, because that's where the majority of those roots, as they begin to grow out, are going to be. Once they begin to mature and establish nice lateral roots going out beyond the drip line, we want to make sure to water at the drip line and base of the tree. So naturally where the rain will be shed off of.
Hey, okay. We don't know what happened. I was just like, oh, is that you never
I'm
know?
like, I thought it was me.
I thought it was me. So I was like, I didn't want to interrupt him.
No. So I'm sure Chris is trying to get back with us here in just a moment. I hate to break his flow. We'll just have to remember where he was at. But
Right, exactly.
he did just drop. So we'll give him just a moment or two to kind of come back with us. Hang tight. But yeah,
I hated to interrupt him because I thought, oh well, maybe it's not, and it's just me. And I know I've ran to your office before, and it was like, no, it was just you.
No,
so
yes,
I didn't want to interrupt anything.
I thought it was my computer. I've been having trouble this morning
Well,
too.
you,
And I
you
thought
and all of our viewers are out there going, was it me? Or
I pulled out my Surface really quick, and I'm like, I'm gonna fire this alternative machine up here.
I know. I
We
was
got
trying to go to
something
my
do.
phone. I'm like, is this still working? What's going on?
I called Billy really quick, and I was like, is it me or not? He's like, no. I was like, okay.
All of us here on campus are just like, oh yeah, this is just the normal little hiccups that we have with
Right.
the internet.
That is one of the things. The technology is great until it doesn't work. But
Yes, it's lovely until it doesn't work.
But we'll give Chris maybe a moment or two, and then perhaps we might just kind of switch gears. Then Renee, if he's not back with us here in just a few secs,
We'll do that.
Don't want to keep folks. And I was thinking, Dr. Crocker, you're a little bit shorter maybe than Dr. Gumbert, so maybe let you go if that makes sense.
Or
Does that
I
make
can go
sense?
another time, depending on
Okay.
when Chris
Well,
gets back, because
I'm
I
easy.
know you've
I'm
got two
easy. I want to get.
speakers.
I know. I want
You've
to get
got
you on
double
both in.
speakers, and I don't want to make them both
That's
reschedule.
fair.
So
Okay, fair
no.
enough. All right. Well, we
But
can do
before
that.
we get too deep in logistics, can we just hear it for the soils right
Go
Yeah.
now?
soils.
I was
Yes.
so excited to
No,
see his soil images and
I'm
looking
not.
at the roots. What a fascinating
No,
talk.
I'm hoping we
Yeah.
get to hear the rest of Chris's
The rest of the
conversation.
story.
And
Okay.
I see that Mark Coyne is in the chat over here. I
Amanda,
think this
you
is a
can answer that,
fascinating
maybe.
question. He asked, can I take it as a given then that the trees I'm planting in a cemetery have roots that are not penetrating into the graves, which are greater than 3 feet deep usually? And I think that's probably a reasonably safe assumption. I would, if you think about cemeteries, there are large trees in cemeteries, all over. I think many of us have those associations of large trees with those final resting areas. So I think it's a reasonable assumption. I'm not a tree root expert. Ellen, do you have
Ellen or Billy?
I would think that it's certainly possible that they could, depending on the tree species that you're planting. Now, perhaps we could talk about the beauty of life and renewal.
There you go.
But I do think most of the roots are going to be in that top component, but that doesn't mean all of the roots are going to be in that top component.
I would wonder if it also would be influenced by soil conditions
Yeah,
in
that's
terms
true.
of moisture and drainage and is there water available for the roots
Right.
or are they having to seek, water at deeper depth? So I don't know.
Right.
But
Well, we'll maybe hopefully
fascinating.
give Chris a chance to
Yeah.
answer that question here in a little bit. But I
Yeah.
think for the interest of our viewers, if we can, we'll switch gears now, and Dr. Gumbert will get you and Laura on, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then we will try to wrap things up with Chris if he comes, and get Dr. Crocker in as well.
All right. So
Awesome.
Dr. Gumbert, take it away.
Awesome. Well,
And we got Laura with us, the first timer.
Yay,
First
welcome.
timer. Yeah. Woohoo.
We're very excited to
I know, I
have
love it.
Laura. Laura, go ahead and unmute yourself. And
welcome.
yes, welcome. Let me also make sure that I am where I need to be with my images, but we are very excited to have a longtime viewer,
Yes.
first time guest.
Yeah,
right?
she said, she goes, oh, I've watched it. I was like, yes.
I know,
It's like awesome.
love it. But now you're getting to share some knowledge with us. So, Laura, glad to
exactly.
have you with us.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks for having me.
absolutely. Well, super excited. Oh, let me move oh my goodness. Why are we?
It happens.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll get there. We will get there. Try this again. There we go. I think you should be seeing the right thing now.
It's coming up. There we go. Yeah.
There we go. There she is. She is in the flesh. My guest today is Laura Gregory, and she's a watershed program director with Kentucky Waterways Alliance. And she's going to talk to us today about the work that she does statewide with Kentucky Waterways Alliance, but also she has done a ton of work in the Red River watershed. And I want to give her a chance to share that with you because it is inspiring and exciting. And I think it will get all of us ready to do some warm weather water activity. So Laura, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being our guest today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself. I know a lot about you. I've known you for a long time, and it's exciting to see all the work that you've been doing. But tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I'm originally from Texas, actually. I studied geography at the University of Texas at Austin, and I've done quite a few things in between graduating and getting involved at Kentucky Waterways Alliance, from migrant farm work in the cornfields of Iowa to apple picking in Wisconsin, tree planting in Texas and Arkansas, rock climbing, musician. I did that research with Amanda's husband, Mark Gumbert, at Copperhead Consulting. I grew up coordinator for a while doing organic gardening and financial assistance in Wolf County where I live. Yeah, I love to grow and eat and preserve my own food and spend time with my friends and family.
Yeah.
Playing music, playing games, walking the dog along our creek in the woods, and yeah, my husband and I also have a pottery business.
Yeah, well, I was hoping
In
you
the
would
Red
share
River
with that.
Gorge,
Yeah.
Turtle Farm Pottery. Yep. So we,
Yeah, so Laura is both a scientist and an artist. So definitely using both sides of your brain, Laura. So it's exciting. So thanks for sharing a little bit about your background. I'm curious if you could tell us a little about Kentucky Waterways Alliance. We've heard from other watershed coordinators. Previously with other interviews that we've done, and we've most of the folks we've talked to so far either work for the in some way, shape, or form the Kentucky Division of Water and work within river basins, or some agency, and you work with a nonprofit. And so I'm anxious for you to tell us a little more about Kentucky Waterways Alliance and what your position is with them.
Sure. KWA is a statewide nonprofit organization with the mission to protect, restore, and celebrate waterways of Kentucky. Our main office is in Louisville, and we have 6 staffers there. And we also have 3 staff members in Eastern Kentucky. I'm one of the Eastern Kentucky folks. And yeah, since 1993, KWA has been the only statewide organization focused on waterways in Kentucky. We're a member-based organization, and we work with communities on local watershed issues and advocate for better policies and programs at the state and national levels. So that's kind of the basics
Yeah.
of KWA.
Yeah, awesome. And so in your position is kind of a statewide role, right? But you started out doing more work specifically in the Red River watershed. So tell us a little bit about both of those and how you see them like blending together, maybe a little bit of the path to get there.
Sure. I started at KWA in 2017 as the Red River Watershed Coordinator, working on implementing a local watershed plan that was created between 2012 and 2015 to reduce non-point source pollution. The project is a partnership between KWA and Forest Service with EPA funding that is given to us through Division of Water. So you mentioned the basin coordinators. That's a big part of it, working directly with Division of Water. But we also work with a lot of local partners like the local watershed group, Friends of Red River, and volunteers and the health department and the fiscal court and others. Let's see, the watershed-based plan that we're implementing in the Red River, and I was the Red River Watershed Coordinator for 5.5 years. You know, we're working on the main issues that the watershed plan showed was sedimentation in the water, due to lack of riparian buffers and some illegal campsites and trails in the Red River Gorge, which is part of our focus area, as well as bacteria in the water due to failing septic systems or non-existent systems, you know, lack of municipal infrastructure and some agricultural pressure. So yeah, so the main things that I worked on in that role was like education and outreach, like cleanups, tree planting events, stream sampling, water festivals, murals, bio blitzes. That's the education and outreach portion, but also education on septic, how to care and maintain your septic system, and septic assistance for low-income families. So actually installing new septic systems for folks that need that assistance.
Yeah, I feel like, Laura, as you're talking about this, and I know just historically some of the work you've done, the way you describe it, there's a lot of issues on the ground, and there are a lot of opportunities to do, the on the ground effort, the implementation, and, the cleanups and education. But all of it really seems to come back around to engagement with the local community. How was that received as you were working within the Red River watershed? How did you feel like community engagement or the local engagement, how did that work?
Well, it's slow at first to get people engaged and interested in what we're doing. I mean, even giving away septic systems, building that trust that we are, not going to fine people for having failing systems, that we really do have free septic systems. It was
That's a pretty big ticket
surprising.
item too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it averages like $9,000 right now in our
Right.
projects. So it's pretty high.
Yeah.
But yeah, just building trust. A big part of that has been, working in the schools and gaining the trust with students and showing, that we're just trying to improve the health of the watershed for the health of the people. And working with Friends of Red River also helps a lot. Doing cleanups and people seeing it's that way that people can really see us making a big impact. They're not aware of all the trash. I mean, in the river, where does it come from? Why is it there? So yeah, doing the cleanups really gets us on Facebook a lot and people responding and in the
Yeah.
newspapers. So
Yeah, I think the cleanups are, and especially this time of year, we're in Water Week right now in Central Kentucky and lots of cleanup opportunities. I think it just is a tangible thing that people can participate in, and it is a feel-good activity. You can visibly see trash, you can visibly see, especially tires or other things that are, shouldn't be in the waterways. And it does seem to be a great way to engage people that is accessible. Anybody can take, a trash bag out and do a stream walk and pick up trash. So, and it does feel good.
almost anybody. I mean, some people, when they want to be involved and they maybe physically can't get out there, we're like, maybe you could help us with our shuttle to get from one place to another, or maybe you could bring the volunteers lunch. So there's ways to get involved otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point too. And even like you said, if people aren't physically able to do things, if they have access to, a computer or technology, sometimes they can help spread the word or call neighbors and recruit volunteers. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
and now, so we just came out with River Cowboys Keeping It Wild. It's a 12-minute mini documentary. It was released, so anybody can watch that. It's on KWA's website. Um, and it shows all of this cleanup work that we've been doing in the Upper Red, which is our nationally protected wild and scenic portion of Red River. It's very remote, yet we're still pulling out 40 to 60 tires every year in this very remote section. And so we're telling the story of illegal dumping of tires and trash in our waterways through this lens, but it's an issue that's statewide and nationwide. And so that's another way people that can get involved is watch the film. We came out with a discussion toolkit that goes with it too. That meets middle and high school science and social studies standards. But it's great for community members too, to just watch the film and create a discussion to talk about the issue and how you might be able to make a positive change in your own community.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I've seen you kind of at all places across the state, sharing the experiences you've had in the Red River watershed. And it is very inspiring to hear that. And now you're in a position where you get to work statewide and engage people statewide. So how does that work for you? Because it is tough to have a statewide appointment and feel like you're being effective in all places. So tell us about how you're approaching that work with Kentucky Waterways Alliance.
Yes, it is a challenge. Since 2022, I've been in this statewide role as the watershed program director at KWA. And so I work with watershed stewards and leaders of all kinds, from volunteer to professional, new to experienced, community members to elected officials. And these are the people, the agencies and organizations that make up KWA's Kentucky Watershed Network, where we work collectively to increase our overall impact on improving water quality. so it's challenging to work in this large of an area and with this many communities. So it can be difficult to go as deep as you might want. But I get to work with the basin coordinators to identify areas with maybe more need or more interest from the community. And I try and take a programmatic approach to help guide folks without taking all of my bandwidth to do it for them. So we offer technical and financial support, technical support through things like workshops, our annual summit, and toolkits. Like this year, we've got monthly workshops and meetups virtually. We just did one about waterways, waste tires again, and we've got other topics like community cleanup leaders, data centers, dam removals, watershed planning, so on. And then the summit each year is in a different of the major river basins, which we keep talking about. There are 7 major river basins in Kentucky. So we move around to show off different issues and success stories of different areas. This year it's going to be in Berea in September. That's in the Kentucky River Basin. And the date will soon be announced, but yeah, in September. And then toolkits like the River Cowboys toolkit I mentioned, and cleanup toolkit that we have. And then we have seed grants that we're offering annually too for 2-year projects for non-point source pollution projects, also in each of the major river basins. We're doing so that's a great way to get on the ground projects that we're not doing ourselves, but we're able to support.
Yeah. I see that that your position and the work that you're doing through KWA is parallel in some ways to the basin coordinators, but also I think filling a space that that is a little more flexible sometimes in programs you can offer, or an additional layer of support that maybe state or other agencies might not be able to fill. Do you feel that way, that there's a little more nimbleness almost as an NGO than maybe we might see with other agencies?
I think so. And I also think that it really takes these different partners to make it moves forward and move smoothly, because yeah, it does take the state, it does take the higher ed, it takes the local groups and officials. Yeah, I think that nonprofits have their nimbleness, but we also have our insecurities when it comes to funding and having to piece that out. So yeah, we rely on one another, I think, to make these projects go.
Yeah. Funding is always a challenge with watershed projects. It feels like that sometimes those things wax and wane, but it is nice to see, the coordination and that network, the watershed network that you've built here in Kentucky. I think is a really important network of peer learning and being able to figure out a way for folks to find the resources that they need. So I think that's exciting.
Yeah, I think it's important, that we're not working in these silos, because we're all doing the work, and working together is an important part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there other watershed challenges that KWA is working on right now that you can share with us?
Well, I mean, I think that, as I mentioned, some of our biggest challenges are dealing with funding. There's a lack of funding for watershed focused work, and I think other states have funding for this, where we are hugely reliant on the EPA 319 funds. I have not personally tapped into the grant funds yet, which is the state matching funds, but working on that process. And so, yeah, if we could get more state funding dedicated to watershed or conservation work, I think that our work to protect and restore waterways would be more reliable and meaningful. A big thing that KWA works on is policy issues. I'm a little less involved with that, but we do have a policy director, Nick Hart, who's doing some great work at the state, especially right now. This is the legislative session, and some of our issues, they really are they're bigger issues. You know, we're doing these cleanups and it's great community engagement, it's great awareness building, but ultimately I do think that it's a band-aid solution to something that could have larger solutions. So we're working on that end and chipping away at it where we can.
Yeah.
And trying to get raise awareness on that end too, because we're not community members aren't always necessarily aware of how important that side of things are and how it affects their everyday lives.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a tough one to tackle. So it's good to know that you all have folks who are really paying attention to the legislative side of and the policy side of things. So have one last question for you, Laura, and this one is probably an easy one for you.
Okay.
But can you tell us what your favorite Kentucky waterway is?
That's a hard question, Amanda. You know, I love water, so it's hard to pick a favorite. You know, it's like, should I pick the spring by my house that provides our clean water at home, or my favorite waterfall? But I think I should really say that my favorite is Red River, since she has been part of my draw to Kentucky in the first place. It's been part of my work for the last 9 years, and it's a great place to recreate and contemplate, and it's really the lifeblood of my community. So
Yeah.
gotta
Yeah,
love Red River.
I was suspicious that that was the answer, but
You
it is
know.
really, it's a tough question. It's really hard. It's really hard to nail that down. But Laura, thank you so much for talking with me today. We're really excited to learn about the work that you're doing and will continue to do with Kentucky Waterways Alliance. So
Yeah,
thanks a
thanks so much.
bunch.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that was great. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate that. Yes.
No.
Awesome.
Oh, I love the segment. Love the work that Laura's doing. Did we lose Laura? Hopefully not.
I don't think we
There she is.
Hey, Laura, Amanda,
Great
thank you all
job.
both. That
Yeah.
it's really impressive, you know. And I did not realize that you were also with Turtle Farm Pottery, and I was wondering where all of our money was going. But now I know because my wife is one of your biggest patrons, I believe. you
Okay, I love to hear that.
But no,
Yeah.
appreciate not only your artistic skills, but actually the great work you all are doing with our waterways here in Kentucky. And, you know, I think the red is beautiful as well, but, you know, they're all kind of nice to me in their own special ways. But
It's
yeah,
sort of a trick question. It's
It
probably not a
is, I
fair
know.
question, but I always like to see where, because
Yeah.
usually some people have like this really, really obscure, small, like remote place that they that are willing to share with us. So it's kind of a fun thing. So
Well, that was true. I kind of didn't want to say my favorite waterfall.
I
so.
understand.
Oh, yeah.
Totally understand. Like it's, yeah, we have
Yes.
to have a secret handshake. and then
Yes.
she'll
You
tell us.
gotta be in the circle. Yes, I get it.
Yeah.
No.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you
Yes,
so
keep up the
much.
great work, and we hopefully we can build some more champions, you know, for the work that you all are doing out there for sure. So
We're always
appreciate it.
looking for champions, and we're excited to work with everyone and meet them where they're at. So
Likewise. Yeah.
holler at me. I'm ready to work with you and
That's
figure out how
awesome.
we can
That's
help.
great.
Yeah,
That's
please
great.
keep it up. Yeah,
Yeah,
awesome. Very good.
Definitely.
Oh,
All right. So I think we have Chris back.
yes.
Chris, if you want to go ahead and turn your camera on.
Hey, Chris, it feels
Hey.
like it's been
Oh,
a while.
Well, he's there. Or there you go.
Ta-da! Yes. Hey,
Yeah.
greetings, Chris.
Oh.
I lost power and I just kept talking. So I don't actually know where I left off. But I think I was on tree root protection. Did you guys?
Oh,
Yeah.
you were breaking up really
Yeah.
bad too.
Let's hope we can get you through this time.
Go ahead and maybe turn your camera
Can you
off
hear me
and
at
just
all?
leave.
Yeah, we can hear you. Maybe drop your
We-
camera. It might help with the bandwidth a little bit.
Yeah. I'm gonna stop
And
your
if you can get
video.
back to your
All right. Is that any better?
yeah, if you want to go ahead and put your
Any better?
Yeah,
Or-
we can
yeah.
hear you better now.
We can
so.
hear you better. So go ahead and put your slides up and we'll see
All right.
where you were. Yeah, internet's a lovely thing until something happens to it and then oops. Yeah, I remember that slide. So
Truly. Okay. So we
Okay.
got here, and jumping right back in with where our tree roots are within the first 3
Mhm.
feet. I was so proud of myself because I was like, I got this right in the 20 minutes. We're golden. And then that happens. So thinking about protecting our tree roots when and if we have construction, we want to establish a protected root zone. So actually fencing off an area to keep folks out of that space so that we have a good, safe space for our tree roots. In younger trees, it's pretty much the diameter of that tree in feet outward. For more mature trees or trees that might be a little more sensitive, we can multiply that diameter number in inches by 1.5 and take that in feet outward and fence that area off. And this is really going to protect those larger lateral roots from any compaction or even being crushed by equipment. If we do have to work in that protected root zone, really avoid any trenching of roots. So digging down and kind of cutting through or messing up those roots. And if we can, we want to tunnel or bore under the roots. And there's all kinds of equipment for that. And or using an air knife or some sort of equipment to blow the soil out away from our roots so that we can then work in around them. If there's no way that we can get away with doing any tunneling or removing of the soil to work in and around the roots, and we have to trench, we want to make sure that similar to pruning cuts, we do those root cuts in a nice, clean way so those roots can heal over easily. Jagged cuts are poorly healed wounds. And then if we're going to have equipment, heavy things working in and around our tree, we want to make sure to armor them up. So putting some padding around the base of the tree, as well as maybe some wood slats, and then putting mulch and paneling on the ground so that it disperses the weight of any equipment and keeps the soil from being too badly compacted. That is the end of what I had to say. I will leave you with the USDA Forest Service's Tree Owner's Manual. Fantastic one-stop shop for all things tree maintenance, tree care. A lot of the graphics I took today come from the Tree Owner's Manual. And then I really wanted to come back to give a plug for Kentucky Arbor Day. 2026 will be our 130th celebration of Kentucky Arbor Day. Kentucky has its own Arbor Day on the first Friday in April every year. This year it will be April 3rd, and we'll be celebrating the benefits of trees in our communities at the Capitol in Frankfort, Kentucky. So planting a yellow poplar tree there. The event will start at 10 o'clock. We'll plant a yellow poplar tree. We'll have the signing of the State Arbor Day proclamation, and there'll be cake. We'd love to see as many folks there as possible. Everybody is welcome. Do know it is Arbor Day, so likely it will rain a little bit. So dress for that. We'll be out there, rain or shine. And with that, that was all that I had. So,
That's great. Well, you were almost at the end.
Just so close,
I'm
Chris.
so
Yeah.
proud of myself, and then
Yeah.
everything cut out.
No, it's okay. It happens. It happens.
Well, with the magic of editing, it'll look all nice and smooth on YouTube.
There you go.
So, but no,
We did have a question for you that we were going over is like in cemeteries, do those tree roots actually penetrate graves?
So most graves have a large concrete, it's a casket kind of coffin that goes over the wood. And so that usually keeps the tree roots out. Also, those graves should ideally, unless they are pretty old graves, be 6 feet in the ground, well beyond the reach of the majority of our larger roots. So there may be little needly roots in there. But unless there's a crack or something for the tree to go after resource-wise in there, they're not going to go there. Sort of the same with water pipes and things like that. Unless there's a crack, it's a path of least resistance. The tree's not interested in having to put a lot of energy in fighting and breaking things to get to something that,
Interesting.
it's not a big
All right.
return.
Yeah, it makes good sense. And Chris, we'll give a plug. A number of us from UK are planning to be over at the Arbor Day celebration there at the Capitol. And, we'll invite all of our viewers and listeners to join us there on April 3rd at 10 a.m. at the Kentucky State Capitol as we celebrate Arbor Day here in Kentucky. So everybody's invited, and we'll just see you there at 10 o'clock next Friday.
And if you're there
Sounds
and you
good.
watched our show, please come and say hi to Billy and myself. We're always interested in meeting people who are watching the show. So,
Thank you.
all right.
All
Thank
right.
you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
So, Dr. Crocker, you do have 10 minutes.
Oh,
you
hello,
wanna-
everyone. How's it
Yeah.
going?
Doing
Good.
good. We just had a little kind of, a little run around here with the show, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you
Well-
like to give your presentation, or do you think you need a little longer than what you've got?
You know, it'll be a speed round if we do. So up to you all.
Well,
You know your presentation.
yeah,
Well,
I would say let's maybe save it
off.
then,
Yeah.
where we can do it justice.
So,
'Cause it's such an
Yeah, I don't want you
important topic,
rushing. So
Yeah.
does
I don't-
anyone have any burning questions about EAB and trees? Because
We
we
can-
had planned on using it.
Yes,
we
but
can
yeah,
do it in 10 minutes, or we can take longer. Whatever
I
you all
think
prefer.
it's worthy of a little more
worthy of a little
attention.
long
Yes.
time.
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't want you to feel
Well,
rushed on it.
maybe, and Chris is joining us too. We could kind of set the stage for
Yeah,
that.
let's do that, Chris.
So,
Let's
and
see
then
if he
Chris, I
can-
know he's
If he
still
can get
on.
back
he
on,
can
I know
get
he's
back
having
on.
some technological difficulties over there.
And so spring, not only is it time for flowers and getting out and looking at things, it's time for planting trees,
Mhm.
but it's also time for treating trees for lots of different issues. And so one of them is emerald ash borer. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, I think, at a later time.
Mhm.
But, this is that time of year where your trees are kind of moving resources from their roots, which we just heard a lot about, moving them up and into the trunk and through the leaves. And that's a good time of year if you're trying to use an insecticide treatment that's going to take that chemical and move it throughout the tree to treat your tree, because it'll just happen more effectively. And the one that really comes to mind for me is emerald ash borer, but there are lots of other treatment opportunities there, things like hemlock woolly adelgid, which we've discussed as a group here on From the Woods Today several times as well, that if we want to have those trees and we want to have them healthy, we should be considering these options. I mean, there's also wonderful work that's going on in terms of long-term. How do we find trees that are resistant? How do we use biological controls to protect these trees? What is this big toolbox of integrated pest management? But there's certainly a role for those individual tree treatments too. And so just Chris, wanted to invite you to share anything you'd like on that. Oh, you are still muted.
There it goes. Can you hear
There
me
you
now?
Yes.
Absolutely. And one of the things I didn't hit on that could be almost an entire other presentation and talk is, knowing kind of how trees move within that physiology and move things around affects how we treat trees, health-wise. So knowing when to do those injections, because we're going to move all of that chemical, the insecticide, to prevent EAB up into the tree and in through the bark and places where it needs to be, versus like if we do it at a different time, it won't have the effect that we need. And so you can think about that from keeping trees healthy, but then also as foresters, we do use herbicides and chemicals to remove trees from the forest and make our forests healthier overall. And timing of those and knowing kind of the physiology of how trees work is super important. And that's kind of our baseline as tree people and foresters, to know these things, and then we work outward and find new solutions and look at other stuff that may help that aren't chemical based.
So if there's a tree you're trying to get rid of, is now the time to try to put chemicals on it?
I would not necessarily say so. I am a big fan of basal bark application, being kind of a lazier guy without a Sammy Sosa pitching arm, to doing hacking squirts. So you want to get some of that stuff into the roots, because that's the energy kind of battery of the tree. And so if we're flushing everything up into the tree right now, we may not have as effective chemical application. But you got to do the thing. Whenever you say anything about chemicals, read the label and always follow that label instruction.
Yeah.
So.
And, for folks watching as homeowners, as tree owners, the trees in your yard, there are certainly options that you can do yourself and things that you could be doing to treat individual trees. I'm thinking insecticides. But you also want to balance that with is this really what I need to be doing? Am I having a net positive right now? Because there are also predatory insects that are out there that are going to be negatively impacted by those same treatments. With something like emerald ash borer, it's kind of a different story because either you treat your tree and you keep it, or you don't and you lose it at the moment. Maybe long term that's going to change. But then my thoughts are, okay, is this tree healthy enough that you can treat it? Is it a healthy, valuable tree that's worth your time and energy and financial investment? Because we're not talking about like one treatment 1 year. If you're going to do this, you want to do it right and you want to treat that tree from here on out. You're making a commitment to keeping that tree healthy. So, making sure that that tree is worth it. But then, is this something you are going to do yourself, or do you want to hire a professional for it? Because while there are some treatments you can do yourself and some options there, there's knowledgeable professionals, arborists, who you can hire that can do treatments that you might not be able to do as a homeowner that will last longer and be more effective. So those are some of the key considerations, I'd say. And if you have a big ash tree in the state of Kentucky, it is at risk to emerald ash borer. That's, if it hasn't already gotten there, it's on the way soon. So I think now's the time to start thinking about, what trees do I have? What's their condition? Is this something that I want to explore?
Okay.
Absolutely. And having those ISA, International Society of Arboriculture, certified arborists come and help assess your tree to make sure it is worth treating is definitely something to do.
So we do have a question in the chat, is can you do a basil treatment on invasives during the spring/early summer, or is it best to do that in the fall?
I think it's probably best to do it in the fall, but you can also do it this time of year. And to quote Chris, the label is always the thing that we check. You
Yes.
always want to be following that because, even something like that, there might be differences in terms of temperature that you want to be considering for different times of year. There's when the plant's physiology is best for what you're trying to do, but there's a lot of other factors at play as well.
Good points. Yeah.
Good points. All good points. Well, Dr. Crocker, I'm sorry we didn't get to your
Another
presentation.
time.
We
That
will
just means
save
I
it
get
for
two
another
of
day.
them.
Yes.
And Chris is going to come back
Uh,
and we're going to do it again, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, Chris, your dedication to sticking with us, really appreciate it today. I know
Yeah.
it took a lot, but thank you, buddy. I do appreciate
My
your
pleasure. Sorry about that. And thank you for having me.
Oh, it's
No,
totally
it's good.
fine.
Appreciate it. And we look forward to having you another time real soon too. So
Definitely. All right. Awesome show. Very
it really
informative.
was. We had a really good program, covered a lot of diverse ground. We were playing with the soil and the water a lot today, and it was really good. Really appreciate Mr. Chris Wiedemann. I'm from the Kentucky Division of Forestry, talking about tree roots and the things that we can do to kind of look out for them and protect them. And then we had a nice segment with Dr. Amanda Gumbert and Laura Gregory talking about the Kentucky Waterways Alliance and the great work they're doing. And then we had a nice little chat about emerald ash borer that we'll kind of come back to a little bit later and talk about how you can treat your ash trees. But really appreciate y'all being with us. The guests did a great job, but you as viewers are really what it's all about. So thank y'all for being with us.
So you know me, when it's a holiday or kind of like something that people celebrate, I try to put that on From the Woods Today. We happen to land on April Fool's Day. So we are going to have a show about different things that you might believe that is not true. So it's an April Fool's kind of topic next week.
Yeah, so make sure you join us. It'll be good.
Yes, make sure you join us next week. And make sure you come see us on April 3rd out of the state capitol. We definitely want to see you all.
Yes, indeed.
So you can go to FromTheWoodsToday.com and see all of our past shows. Whenever this one is done, we will put that up on FromTheWoodsToday.com too, and you'll be able to see all of those different roots and water and EAB information. So we greatly appreciate you joining us, though, because, we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you. I mean, we started this just as a COVID thing, and, here we are 6 years later still doing it. So we appreciate you, though, because you all keep giving me topics to talk about, and I really greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Keep up the great work out there.
Definitely.